first strategy is offensive defense. And I actually saw a guy in a duel do this, and he was actually a really high-ranked guy, and it was actually really effective. Like, he won the duel against me, and basically all he did was this sort of offensive defense, and basically he used a lot of overhand chops, you know, and instead of waiting for an attack and then countering, which often happens in duels, there's sort of this dance of waiting for one person to attack and you know, it's timing when you should make your strike. What this guy did is he just sort of ran in and he just started comboing. Lots of upper hand combos, and lots of occasionally like a slash or a jab or whatever thrown in. But yeah, I've never really seen anybody do it quite like that. Like, you would almost assume that he was like a noob, but his ranking was way high, and he had won a lot of duels. And that was sort of his strategy, and I started trying it on some guys later, and sure enough, like the little man-at-arms or whatever, they start running in and they wait for you to make their attack, and then they want to run in there and they want to, you know, they want to do their quick jab and then get out or whatever, their little hit and run shit. But if you are comboing and you just kind of don't stop comboing, you know, kind of keep comboing, what tends to happen is that the person expects this pause in the fight, because most fights have these pauses while the two people kind of dance and decide whose turn it is to make a strike, right? But if you start comboing and then you keep comboing, it's really disorienting to fight against that. And what I found is you can pretty much kind of chase down these like, man-at-arms and stuff, you know, because you just really don't give them much of an opportunity to get in against your attacks, because combos all happen pretty fast, right? Obviously, the other part of this sort of strategy is good footwork, because you're swinging, you're not blocking. I mean, obviously, blocks are thrown in, but since you're swinging quite often, you're a little more vulnerable, so you have to make sure your positioning is good, that you're not in a position where you could get somebody lunging in quick and making a strike. You have to sort of make sure that your footing is good. Yeah, so that's the offensive defense. You defend yourself by having a fairly frequent strikes, basically. And I think the other part to that is obviously your stamina goes pretty fast, right? So after making a few of these strikes, you kind of want to back off and let your stamina recover. The next sort of strategy is the defensive offense, which is basically waiting for your opponent to make the first move. It's a slow, like non-aggressive sort of style, and you wait for them to attack, basically, and then you make a quick block or a quick, you know, sidestep or whatever the case may be, and you follow up. Quick note is that the mouse sensitivity is really important. What I found is that where I used to have a really insensitive mouse, I've amped up my sensitivity quite a bit, so I can actually turn around completely with about the distance of my entire mouse pad, right? So that's a 360, and I've used up pretty much my entire mouse pad. So basically, this is useful if I just want to flick my wrist and get turned around. And that's especially useful for when you get these guys who are making attacks at you, and you're kind of keeping your distance from them, right? And then you kind of run by them, and you turn your weapon into them, right? So they often make an attack, and you're kind of running by, and you turn your weapon into them, and you get around their shield that way. And you know, the same is true with the thrust on the other side, right? So oftentimes you have to follow the thrust into wherever they happen to be. The jump attack, jump overhead slash, I find this works mostly when the target is really close, like pretty much you're running right up next to them, the jump attack, and very often that goes over the block, even against the good guys, because I don't know, it's like almost like a game mechanic exploit. It's like that close. Doesn't really. It's really difficult to block. But the key here is kind of to start the swing and jump on the down part of it, right? So you start the swing and jump on the down part of it. I didn't really do it there, but start the swing, jump on the down part. A note about blocking. When blocking versus a two-hander, that's pretty easy. You can pretty much block two-handers all day long, with the exception of the occasional thrust. Because oftentimes I find that there's a little bit of lag, and because the thrust happens so fast, there's the tiny bit of lag. You don't really get as much warning as you would get versus like an opponent when you had no lag. So depending on the lag, the thrust can be really hard to block and almost impossible, especially on a fast weapon. But with large weapons, you can kind of block all day long, and yeah, it's not really too hard to do. But when you encounter like a fast man-at-arms, or even tricky, Vanguard or Knight character, what they're going to try to always do is they're going to try to get to where your block isn't, right? They're going to try to get around the block and kind of come up behind you. So it becomes really important to block effectively. You have to always have the tip of your mouse cursor basically on the tip of their weapon, right? And if you're blocking a spear, your target is the tip of that spear, wherever it happens to be. If they're really close, you basically can't even see that spear. You're so close, so you never really are going to be able to block a spear from point-blank range. Not on a thrust anyway, but basically when you're getting attacked by a man-at-arms or an archer with a dagger or whatever, they're going to be way over here or way over here, trying to come around you. So where you might usually block that much, depending on which way the weapon's coming in, if it's overhand, you might block that much or whatever. When it's man-at-arms, you have to block quite a bit more, like way over here or way over here, because they're, like I say, they're going to be trying to come around. There's a tiny bit of lag, so basically, if it seems like you need to block here, actually you're probably going to need to block like more over here. But essentially, you just have to watch the weapon and see where the weapon is coming from. It's not from you don't block where their arm is. You don't block where their player is. You block where the weapon is coming from. And if they're far away, the weapon can be blocked really easy because it's like only this narrow little target, right? Like if I was standing far away, you can basically cover my whole avatar with just this narrow little target. But if if I am up close, then to get your weapon to where their weapon is becomes quite a dramatic reach. Alright. I haven't really figured this out yet, but I see a lot of the guys who are ranked high do this cheese maneuver. And basically it's kind of a variation on the slow slash, right? But it's overhead. So what they'll kind of do is slow down the overhead a whole bunch. And this really fucks you up. Like this slow overhead, you can see how slow your weapon starts moving. Like there's regular speed. And you can kind of see how slow that starts moving, right? Like it's really slow. And basically you block that shit, even, with good timing, and it's still coming down. Right? Like this is really kind of cheesy. I think this is kind of like a exploitive of game mechanics, but I guess that's part of it. But yeah, I guess that's kind of how you do it. I haven't actually really tried it until now. The other thing is when you start to compensate for fighting an opponent like that with these really slow attacks, what they do is they speed it up. It's like you're expecting this slow bullshit gets past so many defenses, and then they speed it up and bring it down like a hammer. So that's really hard to deal with. Alt overhand. Alright, actually I found this one's really effective. Like, here's the regular overhand, and here's the alternate overhand. Regular overhand, alternate overhand. Most people expect overhand about that speed, right? The alternate overhand, you can see there's actually quite a bit slow. Like the wind-up's quite a bit slower. Main overhand, alternate overhand. So there's a speed difference there. And what I find often happens is when I'm giving them that and they're expecting this, and for the most part that's what they get from most players, is that standard overhand. Then when you throw in this alternate overhand, it comes at a different tempo, and oftentimes they block too soon and it nails them anyways. And actually, come to think of it, that alternate overhand combined with yeah, I don't know. That's working quite as well. Maybe it comes down a little faster. I don't really know. It's actually, it almost seems like it comes down a bit faster, but I'm not too sure. Anyway, that alt overhand can be pretty tricky, and it oftentimes gets through their block. I find the alternate slash really useful. Like, I don't see it used on me much. I see its standard slash used on me much, but the alternate slash, I find that actually more effective than you would think it should be, right? Because if you're running around this way, and the guy's right there, say, and you're running around this way, putting that slash like that on that side, it just comes around, and you even kind of run beside them, run around them, and then bring it around, you know. And that's not really quite as easy to do from this side for some reason. I don't know why. Different arc, I guess. Anyway, I find this alternate slash really useful, and something I actually often do is I'll be running at a guy, and he'll be running at me. And what I do is I turn slightly to the right, and I just run right past him, but I leave a slash at the last moment. So he misses me. He swings, he misses me, because I kind of turn, right? But I leave a slash, and it's surprising how often that simple maneuver works. It's just kind of like running right past, leaving a slash, right? So that's the dude running right past, leaving the slash, or whatever. Kind of turn at the last minute, leave a slash, something like that. Works surprisingly. Works quite a bit, surprisingly. Not versus the really good players, but versus kind of the average players. Another kind of combo that I find really effective is actually the reverse slash, which turns into a jab. Because this happens really fast. You do reverse slash, and then follow up with that jab. And it almost doesn't even look like you're making that second swing, because it's already on that side, and it gets moved into the slash so seamlessly that it's kind of hard to see coming. Most guys, I find, don't expect that slash to come up. So you can almost what I do sometimes is I just even bait it, and then I just bait the first swing and then I follow up with that. But you have to kind of be careful, because you've got a whole two-swing sequence when you're going to be vulnerable, when you can't block. So basically you have to have the right positioning to make that work. But actually as a follow-up this works well too, right? So if you actually make the attack but miss it and then follow up with that, sometimes you get 2 hits, sometimes you get the second hit in, either way. Let's see what else. Oh, here's a good one. This gets into feints a little bit. So obviously, the feint is actually really effective, especially if you get into it a little bit with a guy, and he starts to expect your attack, and then the next one you feint it. Basically, what I find is that instead of feinting, you don't even need to use the stamina for feinting a lot of the time, because people have itchy block fingers. They'll very often block too soon, especially after a little back and forth. So you swing, he blocks, he swings, you block, and you go back and forth a few times, and then you swing, or sorry, he swings, and you block, and then he's expecting you to swing, so he blocks in anticipation, because he's like anticipating the next block, because you've been going back and forth a bit. So what I often do is I don't swing. I just kind of like make like I'm gonna swing, but I don't swing, and I see his block goes out. As soon as I see his block go up, I swing, and that gets guys a lot of the time. It's surprising how often that gets guys. Just because they get into the rhythm of block, swing, and this is especially effective when you start doing the parry counterattack, because that gets to be so fast, parry counterattack, that you have to respond quickly to that, or else you oftentimes miss your block. So when your opponent's responding really quickly to that fast counterattack off of a parry, to stop and to let him throw up his block, and then to swing once you see his block kind of go up and down, or sort of go up midway. It catches them by surprise, and it works a lot of the time. Yeah, feinting works really well, but basically only feint when he's expecting you to attack, and when you're within a striking range. That's really key, is that you have to know how to, have your feint timing worked out really well, because if you're struggling with the feint timing, if you don't have feint timing nailed, then oftentimes you kind of pre-plan the feint, and that doesn't work very well. You have to be able to pull the feint out like on a dime, and you have to be within. Have to make it look like you're going to strike. Like you're about ready to strike, or it's like your turn to strike, because you've just been going back and forth a bit, and then you pull out the feint attack. I actually saw a slash and combo. Right? Actually, saw a guy do a reverse duck. He kind of did something like that. I'm not even sure what he did. It's like he just was standing up and he like leaned back somehow, stupid, right? Like that doesn't even seem like it could be low enough, but sure enough, I guess I was on a bit of a hill or whatever, and he like leaned back, and he like my swing missed because he like leaned back. I don't even know how much that changes your height, but it must. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. I saw it, like, yeah, maybe there's a way to get even lower, but I can't figure it out. But yeah, when it comes to ducking I actually find really effective when I've missed my block. And it's like, oh shit, he's about to hit me, and I know he's going to hit me, and the only thing I can do is to get down, get low. The thing about ducking is you don't really, it's pretty hard to tell if he's going to slash, or if he's going to overhand. He overhands, you're obviously pretty much screwed. Though even an overhand can miss. If you're like right up close in his little pocket, even an overhand could miss, right? Because it kind of goes around, and if he's got a long weapon, it kind of goes around and over top you. That's hard to do, but To duck, basically that's not enough. You have to get down. Like, you really have to get down, get low. And I kind of, like I said, I only use it when I've blocked and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do now? Get down, get low. Right? Unfortunately, it kind of waits for the block animation to finish, to get down, to get all the way down. But sometimes that's better than nothing. Oftentimes, if a guy's behind you, all you can really do is get down, get low, right, and hope for the best. A lot of like winning the fights is anticipating what your opponent is going to do next. And people tend to have certain patterns, right? And you kind of have to study your opponent. Some of them will come out really aggressively, but for the most part, when you swing and they block, their natural instinct is to swing next. It's kind of like a turn thing. I swing, I block, you block. So you kind of anticipate what they're going to do next and when they're going to do it. It's like, you know, if you approach the guy, you'll get either a type of player who stands and waits for you to make the first move and he'll be all like nervous and jittery, or you get the kind who wants to make the first attack. But you have to kind of like pay attention to what they are thinking, like what's their next move. And then when you kind of figure out what their next move is, you can expect it. You like anticipate it coming and you're ready for it. And like learning to read what the opponent is about to do next based on just like the natural tendencies about how people play this game, I think is really key. Like, obviously it's hard to get a good read on people really fast, but I mean, if you duel one person a lot, you obviously you'll learn them perfectly. But in just like a duel, when you only have like two rounds, you have to figure out what the person is going to do really quick, and you just kind of have to pay attention to what people usually do in that sort of situation. Like if the guy is like a heavy fainter, right, you kind of have to pay attention to what their fight style is, because there's a lot of different fight styles. Yeah, and those are kind of all my moves, I think, for now. What else? Just maybe when fighting a man-at-arms. Sometimes I try to use my two-handed weapon, but sometimes I think it might be more effective to pull out a smaller weapon and just have at it like that, because the man-at-arms and the archer actually they were really quite overpowered, to be honest. But against like the heavy classes, just because of they don't need to make many hits. They really don't hardly need to make any hits, which seems really weird to me, that they can two-shot a Vanguard, you know, with a when it takes 2 shots for a Vanguard to basically kill a man-at-arms or whatever. But yeah, it may be more effective to fight a fast weapon with a fast weapon, because if you fight a slow weapon, then you have these slow blocks, which give them all this opportunity to get in there and make their attack. But if you have a fast weapon, and they're fast, and they're trying to use that small opportunity to get in there, then they have way less opportunity when you have a small weapon too. Yeah, just kind of making this video to keep track of all my moves. And yeah, same sort of strategy here with the slash, and then falls into a jab or whatever. Yeah, that's it for now. That's all I know.